How many times have you lost weight only to gain it back? And then rinse and repeat that same cycle all over and over again, getting even more frustrated. That was Sarah, my guest on the Thin Thinking podcast today. In our interview, Sarah shares how shifting her mindset was the key to taking off 30 pounds and now shifting into maintenance. If you're curious about that vulnerable and sometimes scary transition into maintaining your weight and how different and yet similar it is to weight release, then this episode is the episode for you. Sarah shares some great inspiration and information that you will find useful on your own weight mastery journey. And I am excited to dive in with you. Did you know that our struggle with weight doesn't start with the food on your plate or get fixed in the gym? 80% of our weight struggle is mental. That's right. The key to unlocking long-term weight release and management begins in your mind. Hi there, I'm Rita Black. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, weight loss expert, best-selling author, and the creator of the Shift Weight Mastery process. And not only have I helped thousands of people over the past 20 years achieve long-term weight mastery, I am also a former weight struggler, carb addict, and binge eater. And after 2 decades of failed diets and fad weight loss programs, I lost 40 pounds with the help of hypnosis. Not only did I release all that weight, I have kept it off for 25 years. Enter the Thin Thinking podcast, where you too will learn how to remove the mental roadblocks that keep you struggling. I'll give you the thin thinking tools, skills, and insights to help you develop the mindset you need, not only to achieve your ideal weight, but to stay there long term and live your best life. Hey, everybody, and hello, and thank you all who wished me a happy birthday after last week's episode. You were so thoughtful. 59 actually feels really good. And I am creating a big vision for 60, so watch out. Speaking of creating a vision, I would love you to join me for my live free masterclass. It's called How to Break Through the Weight Struggle Cycle so that you can lose weight permanently. And in it, we're going to just take a deep dive into really key fundamental ways that you can start melting those subconscious beliefs and habits that keep you struggling. And we're also going to be doing some weight loss hypnosis. So please join us. The links are in the show notes. I cannot wait for you to meet my guest, Sarah Hagen, who has released 30 pounds since starting her shift process and now has been maintaining for months. She is a busy mother of 2 little ones with a full-time job. And the great thing is that she learned to put herself first and commit. She is now in maintenance mode and shares some very interesting insights that she has had about this sometimes vulnerable yet empowering transition. So please join me in welcoming Sarah to the Thin Thinking podcast. Hello, welcome Sarah to the Thin Thinking podcast. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
I've been telling our listeners a little bit about you and your journey, but I'm sure they would like to know more about your history. Like, how did you start, struggling? When did you start struggling with your weight? Did you always struggle, or did you start at a certain age?
Yeah, when I think about my weight struggle, where I start are teenage years and having a lot of teenage emotions. Some things were going on in my family, and I discovered emotional eating when I was a teenager. So secret eating was something I took on, gosh, when I was 12 or 13, just kind of sneaking food to my bedroom and kind of associated that with feeling better, dealing with those emotions. Then I started working at a grocery store and I discovered oh, you can buy cake. So that was kind of dangerous. But, I just always kind of thought I could start a diet at any time or lose the weight. I just need to figure that out. And so I just kind of always, felt bigger because of some of those eating habits. And then I was thinking back by my freshman year in college, I was a size 18, and that just was bigger than I wanted to be. And so I just kind of was like, okay, I need to figure this out. And so the first kind of diet that I went on, I discovered South Beach. I think my mom had the book. And so I just thought, okay, I just need to read this book and lose the weight. And I did. I followed it to a T, lost a chunk of weight, and kept it off for probably 10 days. And then very quickly, started back into former eating habits. Never really solved the emotional eating part of something that I've always struggled with. And so, from there, I always say I've gained and lost the same 20 pounds for 20 years. And that's, kind of where I ended up prior to finding the shift. So in addition to South Beach, I had also tried Weight Watchers a number of times, had different success with that. Um, so, and different kind of diets along paying attention to like whole food plant based. I liked that for a while and liked how healthy I felt on that, but then always kind of went back. So really I knew what to do. I knew kind of what to eat. It was really that emotional piece that is the string throughout kind of my weight struggle journey and kind of what I never really figured out for myself. I was always looking for kind of that silver bullet that would all of a sudden fix my mind and make it so I didn't look to food.
Did you, I know you have two children and they're twins and girls and they're five. So sweet. Um, when you were pregnant, when you gave birth and then, for the 5 years now following prior to starting to shift, um, did that pose more of a challenge for you? Because I know you work full time too, so you're a busy,
Mm-hmm.
busy person.
Yeah, prior to becoming pregnant, I was in following a pretty good diet, had lost some weight, wanted my body to be kind of ready for pregnancy. So was feeling good going into that. And then found out I was pregnant with twins and was given permission by my doctor to gain 60 pounds. And that was just not a good prescription for someone who has struggled with overeating and emotional eating because pregnancy is an emotional time. So throughout my pregnancy, while I felt good and I felt healthy, I never did end up gaining that full 60 pounds, but I think like 50. But I mean, I was eating dessert for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. My sweet tooth was out of control, but I was going on walks and drinking water. And so, felt healthy. But it was interesting to be kind of given that prescription to it's okay to gain a bunch of weight where you've tried not to gain weight. So but I mean that was a generally pretty healthy time in my life.
Yeah. How about though, once you had these these
Mm-hmm.
twins, and then caring for them and then caring for yourself and managing your weight? Because I know we have parents of young kids who
Yeah.
are struggling with time and everything too. Was that more of a struggle for you, or was that not too, did you feel like in the scope of your struggling with weight, it was just pretty much the same?
Yeah, I mean, having two kids and a busy job, and it's a lot to put yourself first in any of that and prioritize your weight loss or healthy mindset. I was able to. I'm trying to think. So when I had my kids, I lost that weight that I put on really quickly and was able to keep that off. And then when I was done breastfeeding, that's when the weight really started to come back on. And then we had the pandemic, and I lost a bunch of weight during the pandemic by exercising. You're not eating out, you're not being social. So
Right.
again, that kind of I was back on that journey of gaining and losing that same 20 pounds throughout
Mm,
that time. But yeah, I mean, having kids, there's kind of two things at play for me. One is not feeling like you have the time, time to exercise, time to meal plan, time to have a clear mind at the grocery store. Those kinds of things are all at play. But then also, there's a mindless eating piece that's a big part of having kids around, and their snacks and the things that they want to eat, are my trigger foods too. I love mac and cheese and goldfish and all those kinds of things. So, those are around. So I have to figure out kind of how to be in that world. And, so that mindless eating is also kind of a boredom piece too. You're home with kids and you're kind of looking for something to do, looking for something to kind of excite your brain. Well, sweets and mac and cheese kind of do that for me.
yeah.
So, kind of not only having that food around, but just kind of navigating who I was as a mom and how I was going to kind of fill the day, was a big part of kind of how kids added another challenge. I just felt like I was less in control of that. And I mean, yes, boredom and mindless eating, but also having kids is stressful. And I mean, I even felt this last night. If I'm feeling overwhelmed by parenting or stressful, I mean, my first intention is like, what can I eat?
Right.
And so I'm aware of that now, but that doesn't solve it. But again, I mean, that emotional string kind of going throughout my whole journey, emotional eating. I see that that's a way that I deal with stress too. So yeah, that's kind
Yeah.
of the emotional roller coaster that you go on, and finding other ways to solve that beyond food.
Well, so now, how did you find, because I don't even know the answer to this, how did you find the shift and hypnosis? Like how did
Yeah.
that come across your path?
Yeah, I had a friend who had quit smoking with hypnosis, and I kind of was intrigued by that. And I thought, gosh, if I could quit anything, it'd be emotional eating or overeating or whatever I called it at the time. And so I just kind of started doing some Googling. Is
Mm,
that a thing? Can you get hypnotized to eat less, basically? And I actually found a local woman in my area who did that. And so I had a consult with her and kind of talked about my history. And she identified, emotional eating as a struggle of mine, and said, yeah, let's have a couple sessions. And so I did and really liked it. And over the course of maybe 2 months, weight was kind of melting off. But I had those 3 sessions and that was it. It wasn't like something you maintained. And so just one episode of traveling, and I was pretty quickly back into old habits, and wasn't really given great tools to keep working with. It was more, okay, I had my 3 sessions and then it's like, shoot, I lost it. So then I was doing kind of more research, seeing, are there more resources out there? Because I enjoyed the hypnosis sessions, and I found your podcast. And so started listening to that, and learning about you and your journey. And then it started following you on Instagram, and you had a shift coming up. So I thought, here's my chance. I wasn't 100% committed. The timing wasn't right. There were all these things coming up, but it was like, nope, I've got to do this. I'll get motivated by doing it. And so
mm.
that was this past fall.
Oh, wow. Well, okay, cool. And so you had enjoyed hypnosis. And then, you did the 30-day shift process. You did the live version where I was leading it. Um, what happened in the process? Like what was helpful for you with, like I know you had done hypnosis before, but what was helpful about the actual process and the 30 days for you?
Yeah, well, I mean, with the hypnosis was just different than I thought it was going to be. I think I'm remembering like a childhood carnival where there was a hypnotist there, and they, make you quack like a duck or something like that.
Mhm.
It's not that, obviously. So
Right.
I was Like I kind of thought it would be a one and done, like 3 sessions, and I would be, cured or
Cured.
whatever. Yeah. um, so, but I mean, what I've really enjoyed about the hypnosis is just how relaxing it is and the vision work and just kind of walking through my mind and kind of figuring some things out there. Also, with kids, I mean, it has kind of become a moment of self care that I do this at night and it, relaxes me to sleep. And then in the morning, the time for the morning meditation as well. There's been times where my kids run in my room on a Saturday morning and I say, I'll be with you in 10 minutes. I need to do my meditation. So even that is just a way different way to start your day and doesn't always work, but um, but when you talk process, are you talking the 30-day shift process?
Yeah, I guess I know like one of the things that we cover is skills. Like you had said, you didn't get
Mm-hmm.
skills when you had worked with
Mm-hmm.
the other hypnotist, and that this was a way to like the 9 skills of weight mastery.
Mm-hmm.
Did you find those helpful? Because that kind of creates a more of a platform for you to be empowered, for you to be the one in control.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as far as skills that are helpful, yeah. So to pair the mind work and the hypnosis with the skills, that was kind of the leg of the stool I was missing. So yeah, the skills, not even like the really practical things like tracking and that kind of stuff, but the shift breath, that skill is life changing for me, not only when it comes to food, but with my kids. I mean, I'm stressed, I'm overwhelmed. Take a breath. And I was kind of preaching that to them and myself even before finding the shift process, but it's kind of true in all instances. Take a second, think about what you're feeling, what's going to happen. That's been just really powerful for me as far as skills. So that's the big one that comes to mind. But yeah, tracking helps too, and how that gets you just into a science mindset. I've done other programs where you're tracking, and I think I've made it a day or two tracking on other programs, and so clearly something is clicking to make me continue to
Yeah,
track. But now I'm at 260 days, I think I saw this morning, of
yeah,
tracking,
yeah.
and that's just amazing.
Yeah, I think the distinction between tracking, because I think a lot of people hear tracking and they're like deprivation,
Mm-hmm.
dieting. The way we use tracking with the shift is to get cognitively correct. We are,
Definitely.
um, and we think of it as a science rather than dieting. I don't like that term dieting. It's more, it empowers you to know one, how much your body burns a day and the food you're putting in it so that you're at choice. People are always surprised because tracking has such a bad reputation, but when they start to use it in this more cognitively correct way, it actually calms them down, gives them power, and allows them to really release weight at a rate they decide, which is something, I mean, did you find that was true with your journey of releasing 30 pounds and keep now starting to keep it off?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, tracking is like the one thing I wouldn't give up because there is that that's a knowledge is power piece. So not only throughout release, I could see, kind of do some of the math on, okay, if I, this is what my calories look like, that puts me at this many calories for the week, that kind of thing. And now that I'm in maintenance, it really empowers me to see, you know, okay, so I did go 1,000 calories over this week. That's not even a pound, but I'm not quite loving that. I want to, you know, think about that differently. So, okay, next week I'm going to go on an extra run. And, so you even just start to make it real as opposed to just, oh, I screwed up kind of thinking.
What Sarah's talking about is inner communication. Really, what the tracking allows is that extra step of really assessing and getting clear on things. And so that you have a respectful conversation with yourself, like, well, we have some choices. what are we going to do? Or even setting yourself up for success for the week. If you're traveling, knowing that, okay, well, maybe I'm not going to be in weight release mode. I'm going to just maintain, and having that ability to do that and eat more and not fear, okay, is this going to make me gain or lose? Because I think when we aren't aware, all we have is we're being good or bad, we're on or off. And that is where the brain gets tripwired into that all or nothing, on or off mindset. So tracking, when you're using it correctly, allows you that extra step to connect with yourself and communicate powerfully so that you can move through the moment, see, oh, you know what? I'm really not that off. And I can just keep going and stay consistent, because it's one of those skills that is in all these studies equate it with long-term success. And the reason is how you use your brain differently when you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So, with regards to maintenance, I mean, what I know that you said that this is the lightest weight you've been ever, and that this is the longest you've maintained. Walk us through that and walk us through how it's been. And you can talk about the good and you can talk about the bad. Like what is, because I think people are always surprised by maintenance. We always think of like, I can't wait to like reach my ideal weight. But then we get there and we're like, holy crap, what do I do now? Because we're not
Mm-hmm.
used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think even that ideal weight has been an interesting journey for me because I started the shift not really knowing where I would level out. Honestly, I was like, if I lose 10 pounds, I'd be thrilled. So I lost the 10 and then kept going and then kept going and then hit weights that had been my goal weights on previous diets or, you know, um, and then kept going. And so it's kind of where it's leveled out is I was really so I didn't quite know I was in maintenance until I kind of hit there, and I like how my clothes are fitting. Getting dressed is fun in the morning. I feel good in a bathing suit, feeling good in shorts. Those kinds of things are like, yep, those were all my goals. And so now where I'm at is okay, this feels like sustainable maintenance to me. I mean, maybe there'll be a future day where I say, gosh, I'd love to be down 10 more pounds and really, kick into release mode. But for now, I'm good where I'm at. So yeah, moving into more of a maintenance mindset has just been interesting because I'm working a new muscle every day to kind of stay here and continue to work the skills, but in a little bit of a different way. Incorporating some things back into my life that I didn't, do during release mode and being okay with that. But I've been a very all or nothing, black or white thinker when it comes to weight release or maintenance. And so now I just really have to remind myself, if I have that half a piece of cake or whatever, that's okay. Track it, move on. You didn't screw up anything there. And so just continuing to not be nervous about how I'm moving through the world and trusting myself has been, yeah, a muscle I keep working every day.
Yeah, and I think a lot of what you're saying makes a lot of sense. So often, I mean, I'm sure a lot of our listeners have lost weight and gotten to that ideal weight. And then there is just kind of this shift in your mind where you start, I think you were telling me before we turned on the record button, like that, the next day you might be eating something that would like then trigger you to want to eat more. And really, why we focus on the 9 skills is these skills are lifelong skills. It isn't just about being on a diet. It is really about developing yourself, and not just developing yourself as a weight loss person, but really developing all these mind skills, self-care skills, environmental skills that are really just about life. So I appreciate your walking people through, and it's maintenance is a mindset in and of itself. I think the diet industry feeds us this idea like we get to our ideal weight and we float off into the butterfly, float off as a butterfly or a unicorn, and then we're in the happy ever after. But we're still living in our brain and we're still living in our body, and we now need to learn how to negotiate that. So I was telling Sarah, because she's going through her first summer as a weight maintainer. I said, yeah, you're going through and you're learning all of these new skills of managing the summer, like barbecues and travel. And those are things that we need to learn both as a weight releaser, but then as a weight maintainer. And I said, you will go through the fall and it will be this, I know you've gone through the spring already. So it's such a, but if you can frame it to yourself as the, oh, this is a new journey and I'm hitting new milestones. Because the biggest problem, I think, and maybe you can speak to this, Sarah, is that when we stop releasing the weight, we stop getting that dopamine hit on the scale, and we have to start creating that in other areas of our life. And people get, bored. Boredom is one of the biggest killers of weight maintenance, because they're like, well, this, nothing fun's happening on the scale. So, you know, we start to move away from it and then it falls apart. So, you know, what, in that place, in that, like, the scale's not moving anymore, how has that been for you?
Yeah, so the scale isn't moving, and neither is my weight release chart. It's just now like a heartbeat, up and down, up and down.
Yeah.
So yeah, you aren't getting that kind of instant gratification of, oh, I'm working these skills and I'm seeing these results. I think the results that I'm looking at, and it's less obvious, but just kind of what's becoming natural and what do I need to continue to work on. I mean, need to continue to work on most of it, but I think that's where, just what kind of do I need to repeat every day to kind of live this maintenance journey? And a lot of that is just continuing to work the skills. But yeah, I guess I haven't really figured out kind of where to get that other that dopamine hit. But we talk about vision and mindset. And so, what is my maintenance vision as opposed to what was my weight release vision? I think a weight release vision can be a lot more exciting in some ways, because yes, I have this goal I'm getting to, and my maintenance vision is a little more abstract, or maybe harder to picture in some ways. So I'm working on building that vision and making that vision stronger so that continues to pull me through the process as well.
Right. I think one thing that I was talking to somebody else about this yesterday, another client, which was there's the weight piece, but then there's the freedom from the struggle piece. And that freedom is one of the things that we can always focus on, like that we're free. And I love also that you're like, oh, I love getting dressed in the morning, and not worrying about, like, are these clothes going to fit me? Or if we were talking about before we turned on record, setting a great example, what a great example you're setting for your daughters as far as just like modeling self-care, healthy eating, then they are growing up with a mom who's, a leader in a way, leading them through the minefield
Mm-hmm.
of weight, and which is such a huge minefield,
Yeah, I
especially
mean,
girls.
one of my visions I've thought about is I've seen parents who are kind of running alongside their kids who are biking. And I've
Mm,
thought that I want to be that mom for my kids. And so that's a motivator to exercise, to go running. But my girls are now at a point where they see me do exercises at home, or they've even seen me like just walking in place. I try to get 10,000 steps every day, and some days that's a real struggle. And so I'm walking in place while they're, watching TV or whatever. And mom, what are you doing? Well, I'm exercising. Why do you exercise? It feels good for my brain and my body, and so like their exercise is just part of what we do in our home, which is great. And so yeah, like that, so I see the relation between that kind of long-term vision and then what I'm kind of teaching day to day too.
right. And it sounds like what you've created as well, just for me to highlight for our listeners, is that you've created a structure that's repeatable for you,
Mm-hmm.
and I do think that as you go through your first year of maintenance, your structure, we were talking about that as you go through different seasons, as you go, that may change and flow.
Hmm.
But it's an understanding that there's a flexibility to this as well. Like you just went traveling, and that's going to be a completely different structure or a different mindset than when you're at home and we've got all of your tools around you, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, do you have, so this has been really, really helpful. Do you have any suggestions for anyone just, who's like, what's the first step I should take with moving forward,
Hmm.
on a more powerful journey than just dieting and down the scale? Like,
Yeah, I mean, a few things come to mind that have just been really impactful for my journey. And it speaks to, when I found the Shift 30-day process, I had a bunch of limiting beliefs about why now wasn't the time. And I don't know, I'm not quite motivated enough. Or, I've always just kind of waited for motivation to strike. And then, but there's really no perfect time to start. Life is always going to
mm,
be happening, right? I found great success with just starting, and momentum kind of comes from there.
mm,
So if you're waiting for the perfect time to start, or I can't start before a holiday, or I can't start because a wedding is coming up, or I can't start because a trip is coming up, you will always be not starting. And so figuring out how to navigate through those situations is a huge part of releasing and maintaining weight. So that's just maybe kind of the first thing that comes to mind. But then with that is the another big piece of this for me has been what you call, moving in the direction of, as opposed to being perfect. So when you start, you think I got to be perfect, or I've screwed it up, right? Or
right.
all or nothing thinking. And so I'm moving in that's I realize that's kind of where I was by even, listening to a hypnosis or thinking about, my mindset. I'm moving in the direction of releasing weight. I'm moving in the direction of maintaining weight, as opposed to being perfect on a diet or on a system that may or may not work for me. Um, that those two are kind of related. And I guess just the final thing that comes to mind is I've my whole life been just waiting for a silver bullet of like, I got to find the program or the one hypnosis that, solves everything for me. And it's just so much bigger than that. You're shifting your complete mindset, and that doesn't happen in one day, in 1 month, in 1 year. It's a lifelong journey. And so I think whenever I've started on a more formal like diet program, and I've thought, God, is this my life? Is this, and now I'm like, oh, this could be my life. This, like, in a
Mm.
positive way. So it's shifting that mindset of, you get to work this for the rest of your life, as opposed to have to, as
I
well.
love that. That is so powerful. And I think that's absolutely true, is that when you start showing up for yourself with a more powerful inner speaking too, it changes how you see yourself, how you see your life. And it ultimately, people do come to that realization, which is there's always that overwhelm of like, oh my gosh, this is a lifelong journey. And then it's like, oh, great. This is something I get to feel good and communicate powerfully with myself for the rest of my life. Well, that works for me. But I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. That silver bullet idea just really takes so much power away from us. And really, we're the silver bullet. We're the answer we're looking for, not something outside of us. So once you realize that and start using yourself and believing in yourself, that's where the magic really happens. So thank you, Sarah, for being here today. I really appreciate all you've contributed, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your summer. And thank you for being here on the Thin Thinking podcast.
Thank you. It was great to be here.
Thank you, Sarah, for joining me and sharing your story. It was very inspiring. And thank you, listeners, for being with me today. And just a reminder to head to the show notes to sign up for my free online masterclass coming up soon: how to break through the weight struggle cycle so that you can lose weight consistently and permanently. It's on September 19th. And we are going to take a deep dive into the fundamental ways you can start shifting out of the subconscious beliefs that keep you struggling. And don't forget, there is going to be some hypnosis too. So have a great week and know that the key, and probably the only key to unlocking the door of the weight struggle, is inside you. So keep listening and find it. I will be with you next week. Do you want to dive deeper into the mindset of long-term weight release? Head on over to www.shiftweightmastery.com. That's www.shiftweightmastery.com, where you'll find numerous tools and resources to help you unlock your mind for permanent weight release, tips, strategies, and more. And be sure to check the show notes to learn more about my book, From Fat to Thin Thinking: Unlock Your Mind for Permanent Weight Loss.